In a bustling city, the lobby of a grand hotel buzzed with excitement and tension. The lights shimmered above and guests chatted, their voices mingling like a symphony of life. Among them stood Sarah, her frustration boiling over as she paced near the front desk. She was waiting for an important meeting, but her patience was wearing thin. She shouted to a man who had just walked in. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit, but something about the way he walked made him seem out of place. The man turned, a calm expression on his face. "Just hurry up, some of us have places to be," Sarah snapped, her voice tight with anger. He raised an eyebrow, momentarily taken aback, but said nothing. Instead, he stepped to the side and let her pass. Sarah didn't look back as she stormed away, her heart beating fast, a mixture of impatience and anxiety. As she reached the elevator, she could still feel the weight of the day pressing down on her. The meeting she was heading to was vital for her career. If she didn't impress her bosses today, it could mean missing out on a tremendous promotion. Every second felt precious. The elevator door slid open and she jumped inside, tapping the button for the top floor repeatedly. The metal box shook gently as it began its ascent. Sarah leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Her mind raced with thoughts of what could go wrong. Just then, the elevator stopped at the lobby, and in walked the same man she had just yelled at. He stepped inside and smiled politely as if they were old acquaintances. "Looks like we're going to the same place," he said, his voice cool and collected. Sarah snapped, immediately regretting her tone. "I just meant that we're both headed to the penthouse," he replied gently. "You seem stressed," she shot back. He shrugged, unfazed. "Sometimes we're just in the wrong place at the wrong time." Sarah looked away and crossed her arms. She wanted to ignore him, but there was something about his calmness that intrigued her. Why wasn't he more flustered? As the elevator continued to climb, the tension felt heavy, like a storm about to break. When the doors finally opened, Sarah rushed out without looking back. She walked into the meeting room, trying to shake off the encounter. She moved past the long table where her coworkers were already seated, their eyes on her. They smiled, but she could sense their curiosity. Trying to shake off her earlier anger, she took a seat and focused on the presentation in front of her. The meeting started, and one by one her coworkers presented their ideas. Her heart raced again as she realized it was her turn next. She stood up, took a deep breath, and began. But the words got tangled in her throat. She could feel the weight of their expectations, and the earlier encounter with the mysterious man loomed over her mind. Did they see her as weak, snapping at a stranger? What would her boss think? Halfway through her presentation, she spotted a figure outside the glass windows. It was the man again. He was talking to a group of people, standing tall with an air of confidence. As he turned slightly, Sarah saw the name etched on a plaque just outside the building. Mr. James Stanton. Her heart dropped. It clicked. He wasn't just some guy, he was important. The building didn't just house guests, it had his name on it. She felt heat rush to her cheeks as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. Suddenly, everything felt heavier. She fumbled through her notes, her hands shaking. The room began to blur as her mind spiraled. How could she have yelled at someone of his stature? This wasn't just an embarrassing moment. She had insulted someone who could impact her life and career in a significant way. Gathering herself, she fought against the panic. She wrapped up her presentation, although she was only half focused. As she finished, she cast a quick glance back to the window, hoping to see him still there. But he was gone, probably out of reach, leaving her with an intense feeling of dread. After the meeting was over, Sarah's colleagues filed out, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She waited, hoping to catch Mr. Stanton before he disappeared completely. Maybe he would understand, maybe she could explain. But thoughts of how she had yelled at him filled her heart with dread. What if he didn't want to hear her apology? What if he brushed it off as if it didn't matter? Finally, she rushed out of the meeting room and headed toward the lobby. She searched the area, her heart pounding, and then she spotted him standing by the entrance, talking to a couple of other guests. "Mister," she called, her voice more nervous than she intended. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes as they met. There was a moment of recognition. He knew who she was. His face remained calm, but curiosity sparked in his gaze. "I'm so sorry," she began, breathless. "Earlier, I didn't mean to yell at you, I was just stressed, and it..." He regarded her for a moment and she felt her stomach twist. He was looking deeper, maybe judging whether she was sincere. "It's all right," he said finally, his tone steady. "Yes, it can," she agreed quickly, hoping he could sense the urgency in her apology. "I really didn't know who you were." "That's understandable," he replied, his voice soothing. She nodded, grateful he wasn't being harsh with her. "Again, I'm truly sorry for how I acted." He smiled slightly, a hint of warmth breaking through his formal demeanor. "It's a hectic place." "Thank you for understanding," Sarah said, letting out a sigh of relief. "And congratulations on the amazing building." "Thank you," he said, his demeanor shifting slightly as if they were more equal now. Taking a step closer, she felt an unexpected connection. He contemplated her question. "Sometimes, but you find ways to manage it." In that moment, Sarah realized he wasn't just a businessman with a powerful name. He was human too. They were both navigating a world filled with expectations and stress. Whatever game they were playing in life, both were just trying to make sense of it all. "Maybe we can help each other navigate the pressure," she suggested, her confidence rising. Maybe we can, he replied, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As they stood there, surrounded by bustling guests and industry movement, a strange sense of calm washed over her. Sarah felt the weight lift off her shoulders. She had taken a leap, faced her mistake, and through that vulnerability, she discovered that every powerful name belongs to a person, a fellow traveler in the storm of life. And as they exchanged words, the tension of that earlier moment began to fade into something new, something hopeful. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most profound connections. The lobby was a whirlwind of activity, elegant and busy. Guests hurried to and fro, and the grand chandelier above glittered like 1,000 stars trapped in glass. Sarah stood at the reception desk, her breath quickening as she stared at her watch. She was late for an important meeting and time socked her in the gut. Then, just like that, the door swung open and in walked a man in a crisp suit, a hint of arrogance about him. He moved with a confidence that made heads turn, but all Sarah felt was a surge of irritation as he paused right in her path, oblivious to her growing frustration. She erupted, her voice cutting through the soft hum of chatter. The man turned, eyebrows raised in surprise. She snapped, waving him aside. He stepped aside, brow slightly furrowed, but there was a calmness in his eyes that only fueled her irritation. What did he know about stress? She pressed the elevator button repeatedly, her heart racing as she fought to mask her rising anxiety. As the elevator door slid open, she stormed inside, breathing heavily. The metal box hum had never felt so oppressive. Each floor it climbed felt like an eternity. Thoughts of the meeting danced through her mind, the pressure to impress her bosses, the fear of failure. Chest, the tension coiled tighter. When the doors opened with a quiet ding, she darted out, pushing past a couple of colleagues without a greeting. They noticed her hurried demeanor, glancing at one another quizzically. She plopped down at the long conference table, her heart still racing. She was determined to put on a brave face. One by one, her coworkers took their turns presenting. They spoke with confidence, the room filled with their ideas and excitement. But each passing moment made Sarah's anxiety swell. When it was finally her turn, she stood, trembling slightly as she faced the audience. But everything fell apart as her thoughts collided, just like the elevator doors crashing shut. Words tumbled out awkwardly. She felt like she was underwater, struggling to breathe. Mid-sentence, her gaze flicked to the window, and there he was, the man from the lobby. He stood outside talking to some guests, his posture relaxed but commanding. And then she saw it, the name on the building, Mr. James Stanton. Her heart sank. The weight of embarrassment settled heavily on her chest, suffocating her. Here she was, a nobody in a corner office, and she had yelled at a man whose name was on this very structure, a sign of prestige, power, success. Stumbling through her presentation, Sarah felt the room blur around her. What did they think of her now? Would her colleagues see her as a failure for losing her cool? Panic washed over her. She glanced back at Mr. Stanton, wishing he could disappear from sight. After the meeting, her colleagues drifted away, chatting about the next steps, but she remained behind, her mind racing. She couldn't just let this go. She had to find him, explain herself, own up to her mistakes. She fumbled for her phone to check if he still stood outside. With a surge of determination, she left the meeting room, her heart pounding in her chest. The lobby felt different now. It was full of people busying themselves, but she was focused on one thing, finding him. And there he was, still in the lobby, laughing with a couple of guests. For a moment she hesitated, questioning if she should approach him again. What if he had written her off, already moved past their encounter? But then, at that moment, she firmly decided to confront her anxiety. After she called, taking a step forward, her voice stronger than she felt. He turned, surprise crossing his face. Recognition sparked in his eyes. Right, I wanted to apologize, she faltered slightly, but continued. What I said earlier, it was uncalled for. He studied her for a moment, a flicker of something understanding, empathy maybe. We all have our moments, he replied, his voice calm like the eye of a storm. I really didn't know who you were, she admitted. I was just so wrapped up in my own chaos, I forgot to see the person in front of me. It's easy to get caught up, he said, his expression softening. The pressures of work can turn people into who they're not, even for a moment. His words struck her in a profound way. No, it's not simple, it's a journey. In that second, she felt the air shift. This wasn't just an apology, it was a spark of a conversation that could go somewhere deeper. A bridge had formed between them, and she found herself wanting to step across it. As someone trying to establish my own career, I sometimes feel the pressure to be perfect, she confessed. Perfection is an illusion, he said, his confidence unwavering. Embracing flaws is part of growth. Each misstep brings a lesson. Sarah felt a rush of appreciation for his perspective. Absolutely, my journey, like yours, has been filled with moments I'd rather forget. She smiled, feeling lighter. So in a way, I'm grateful. Exactly, he grinned. The connection between them sparked with each passing moment, two strangers navigating the tangled maze of ambition, learning to connect amid chaos. It was so unexpected, so perfect in its imperfection. He asked, genuinely interested. He chuckled lightly. You have to start somewhere, don't downplay your ambitions. Easy for you to say, she teased. Trust me, the top isn't what it looks like. It's isolating, and that's when the pressure really mounts. His insights echoed in her mind, resonating like a reminder that she needed. "Thank you," she said, with genuine warmth spilling from her heart. "Just remember," he added, calming his voice, "we're all human trying to make sense of the chaos." They exchanged smiles, a silent understanding passing between them. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe this chance encounter was more than what she expected. Maybe it was an opening to embrace her own journey. As they said their goodbyes, Sarah walked back toward the elevator, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. The lobby, once a stressful whirlwind, now felt welcoming. She glanced back toward Mr. Stanton, who stood chatting with others, his presence towering yet comforting. She realized she had a voice, and yelling at him had opened a door to richer conversation about life, ambition, and the very human experience of navigating pressure. Her feet carried her down the hallway, but this time there were no anxious thoughts weighing her down. Instead, she was ready to reclaim her journey, insights swirling in her mind. Today, she had made a mistake, faced it with courage, and forged a connection. In that simple moment, the world seemed just a bit brighter. And sometimes it's the moments we least expect, like yelling at a stranger, that open up the most beautiful paths to understanding, one step at a time. In the heart of the city, where towering skyscrapers kissed the clouds, Sarah found herself in a luxurious hotel lobby that buzzed with energy. The marble floors glimmered under the crystal chandeliers, and guests moved with a sense of purpose, each caught up in their own world. But Sarah wasn't feeling the elegance of it all. Her mind was consumed with anxiety. She stood at the reception desk, her heart racing as she checked the time again. Late for a crucial meeting, she felt her stomach twist into knots. As she paced, her frustration simmered just beneath the surface, each passing moment building a sense of dread. Suddenly, the lobby doors swung open, and a man strolled in, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. He carried himself with an air of confidence, moving easily through the crowd. Without thinking, Sarah felt her irritation flare. He stepped directly into her path, blocking her way like an immovable wall. She flared, not holding back. The man turned around, his expression a mix of surprise and confusion. She snapped, the words spilling out before she even registered their weight. He stepped aside, brow slightly furrowed but composed. While his calmness was admirable, it only fueled her frustration. She pressed the elevator button repeatedly, each beep echoing her impatience. Inside the elevator, the doors closed with a soft sigh. As it climbed, anxiety echoed in her mind. The meeting was crucial to her career, a chance at the promotion she desperately wanted. The last thing she needed was to be late, stuck cursing the world for her bad luck. When the elevator dinged at her floor, she rushed out, her heart pounding. She entered the meeting room where her coworkers were already seated, engaged in light conversation. The air was thick with expectations, and she took her place at the long table, trying to shake off the earlier incident. One by one, her colleagues presented their ideas, their voices steady and confident. Sarah's heart raced harder with each passing moment. The pressure felt suffocating. Finally, it was her turn. She stood, took a deep breath, and began to speak, but the words escaped her. The tension hung thick in the air. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of someone outside the glass walls, a familiar figure. There he was, the man from the lobby. He stood outside, engaged in conversation, but there was something else, his name emblazoned on the side of the building. Mr. James Stanton. Her heart dropped. The realization slammed into her like a tidal wave. He wasn't just some guy. He was someone important, someone with influence. She had yelled at him. Staring at the name she now recognized, she felt the suffocating grip of embarrassment choke her. The presentation fogged around her and panic tightened its grip. What were her colleagues thinking? Did they see her blow up at someone of his stature? Fear clouded her thoughts, spinning into a whirlpool of anxiety. She stumbled through her points, her voice trembling. When the presentation finally ended, it felt like a weight lifted and fell at the same time. The room buzzed as people discussed next steps, but her heart felt heavy. She needed to see him. She needed to apologize, so she left the meeting room, her pulse quickening as she sat through the lobby. The chatter around her faded into the background as she scanned the area. Where was he? Did he leave already? Then there he was standing at the entrance, chuckling with a group of guests. For a brief moment, she hesitated. What if he brushed her off? What if he refused to even listen to her apology? But the thought of letting it go nagged at her, refusing to fade. "Mister," she called out, finding her voice again, louder this time, more determined. He turned, a hint of surprise flaring in his eyes as they locked onto hers. She managed, a flurry of nerves churning in her stomach. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't mean to yell at you. I was just..." He regarded her for a moment. For the first time, she saw something softer in his gaze, a hint of understanding. "It's okay," he said, his voice calm. The sincerity in his words caught her off guard. "I just didn't realize who you were." He chuckled lightly, and in that moment the tension she felt started to ease. "It's easy to get lost in the chaos. I appreciate the apology." Ending in the lobby, Sarah felt the air shift, a connection forming. She had expected anger or indifference, but here he was, treating her with kindness. "Everyone has bad days," she replied, taking a breath. "It's just embarrassing." "Learning moments are part of growth," he said. She asked, genuinely curious. "With every experience we build character," he replied, nodding slightly. "We learn not just from success, but from our failures too." She found herself captivated by his perspective. Their eyes held for a moment longer, and she felt a rush of honesty between them. "I guess I worry too much about the future," she admitted. "I try to be perfect, and when I mess up, perfection is a myth," he said, his gaze steady. "Embrace your flaws, they make you who you are." Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "Not if it led to this conversation," he said simply. They stood there, surrounded by the bustling life of the hotel, and she felt strangely liberated. Here they were, two people once strangers, now bonded by a moment of vulnerability. "Thank you for your understanding. This city can be a pressure cooker, pushing us to extremes," he replied, glancing at the people milling about. "I'll take that reminder to heart," she said with a small smile. "Just remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback," he added, his demeanor inspiring warmth and encouragement. With shared smiles, they exchanged a look of mutual respect. In that instant, she realized he wasn't just a figure of authority with his name on the building. He was a person navigating challenges like everyone else. As they parted ways, Sarah's heart soared. She returned to her office feeling as if a weight had been lifted. The ambience of the lobby, which once felt overwhelming, now felt like an embrace, a reminder that life was a tapestry woven with imperfections, each thread telling its own story. In the days that followed, she carried his words with her. Whenever stress mounted or anxiety threatened to pull her under, she replayed the conversation in her mind. A simple encounter had shifted her perspective, transformed her outlook on both work and herself. Days turned into weeks, and she immersed herself in her job with renewed vigor. The mistakes she had made no longer loomed over her like dark clouds. Instead, they became stepping stones toward improvement. She anticipated challenges, embraced them, and even found moments of humor in her slip-ups. At a new company gathering filled with laughter and conversation, Sarah spotted Mr. Stanton again. He stood across the room, engaging in light banter with a group of higher-up executives. Instead of shrinking before him this time, his presence felt comfortable. Summoning her courage, she wove through the crowd until she stood beside him. "Mr. Stanton," she said, smiling. He turned and their eyes met. "I have," she replied. "Learning from that moment helped me grow." "That's what I like to hear," he said, an approving nod gracing his features. She ventured, emboldened by their previous interaction. "What do you do when you face setbacks now?" He paused, contemplating her question seriously. "I remind myself that every setback is a setup for a comeback." His words resonated deeply. "Focus on the next step." He smiled, warmth radiating from him. "You are doing great things, Sarah." In that moment, she felt a spark of inspiration. Conversations like these had a way of permeating the surface of small talk, reaching into the depths of understanding and support. "Thank you, Mr. Stanton." As they chatted, the connection she had once thought impossible felt effortless now. It was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most profound growth. Looking back, Sarah couldn't help but chuckle at how one heated exchange had transformed her life. She learned that even the missteps held value, paving the way for connections and lessons never anticipated. An ordinary day turned extraordinary, not because of accolades or success, but because of the power of human connection. With each footstep resonating under her, she moved forward into the world, ready to embrace everything that came her way, confident in her mistakes, proud of her journey, and brave enough to yell at life when needed. The lobby of the Sterling Grand Hotel was a whirlwind of activity, an elegant space where the rich and ambitious mingled seamlessly. The marble floors gleamed under the crystal chandeliers, and the air buzzed with laughter and chatter. Sarah stood near the reception desk, her heart pounding in her chest, anxiety pooling in her stomach. She was late for an important meeting that could change everything for her career. Frustration bubbled up as she checked her watch for the third time. She mumbled under her breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She needed to be in that meeting, presenting her ideas, making her mark. Every second felt like an eternity. Just then, the lobby doors swung open, and walked a tall man, his tailored suit hugging his athletic frame. He carried himself with an air of confidence, as if the world was his stage. But Sarah didn't notice the way people turned to watch him. Her mind was too consumed with worry. As he stepped into her path, she barely registered it, only aware of her frustration. She snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the ambient noise. The man turned, surprise etching his features. She shot back, anger boiling over. He stepped back, eyebrows raised, but instead of hurling an insult in return, he simply offered her a nod, his calm demeanor juxtaposed against her rising irritation. Wasting no more time, she pressed the elevator button as if the world depended on it, wanting nothing more than to escape the moment. Inside the elevator, the silence grew heavy, the metal walls closing in around her while the doors slid shut. She leaned against the polished interior, breathing heavily, heart racing. Thoughts of her meeting loomed large, a storm threatening to devour her. As the elevator ascended, she fought to shake off the encounter. It wasn't like her to react that way, especially at a total stranger. But the pressure of her ambition bore down like a weight, and she felt fierce embarrassment bloom in her chest. When the doors opened at the top floor, she rushed out, moving through the sleek corridor toward the conference room. But as soon as she entered, the busy chatter of her colleagues came to a halt, all eyes falling on her. She tried to smile, but the tension felt thick in the air, wrapping around her throat. It was her turn to present after a wave of impressive pitches from her teammates. Standing at the front, she felt the eyes boring into her, her palms sweaty against the crisp paper of her notes. Thoughts raced through her mind, an insistent reminder of the man she'd yelled at minutes before. She took a breath, trying to focus, but the moment felt heavy, the air electric with expectations. Midway through her presentation, she accidentally glanced outside the glass wall, and there he was again, the man who had sparked her fury. He stood outside, mingling with other guests, a soft smile on his face that felt like a direct contrast to the chaos within her. Her heart dropped. This wasn't just some random stranger. He was the owner, the visionary behind the Sterling Grand Hotel. She had lost her temper at the man whose name graced the building. It was as if the floor had crumbled beneath her. The very core of her anxiety cracked wide open, spilling doubt into her mind. Words tumbled out, her presentation faltering as panic set in. She struggled to regain her composure. Her colleagues exchanged confused glances, their eyebrows raised. Everything felt like a blur. The humiliation hit her hard, and she felt the flush creep up her face. How could she have been so careless? How could she have lost her cool in front of someone so important? Finally, the presentation wrapped up, but she felt no relief. Instead, dread nagged at her heart. She couldn't let this go. She had to find him and apologize. She stood up abruptly, the meeting behind her fading into static, her focus zeroed in on the lobby. As she made her way back through the stately corridors, adrenaline surged through her veins. The familiar lobby she had raced through earlier now felt like an arena filled with spectators. She scanned the room, the energy surrounding her shifting, her heart racing with each moment. Where was he? Then she spotted him standing near the entrance, laughing with a small group. Relief washed over her, but anxiety clawed at her throat. What if he didn't want to hear her apology? What if he dismissed her entirely? But those thoughts twisted into determination. She had to do it. "Mister," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. He turned, a surprised look crossing his face as their eyes locked. There was no longer just frustration in her glance. It was mixed with desperation and a hint of admiration. "Listen, I wanted to apologize," she said, rushing forward. "I didn't mean to snap at you earlier." Overwhelmed, and he interrupted her with a wave of his hand, his calm demeanor unmistakable. "It's all right, I understand, but I shouldn't have taken it out on you," she pressed, feeling her heart race in the open air of honesty. He shrugged slightly, his expression thoughtful. "It happens to the best of us." Her heart began to ease. "Still, I appreciate your understanding." "A learning moment," he replied gently, his voice steady. "We've all been there. What matters is how we move forward." She found herself nodding, the tension within her dissipating like fog under sunlight. "I do," he said seriously. "Failure can be an opportunity for growth." His words hung in the air, resonating with her more deeply than she expected. It felt like a weight lifting, a new perspective unfurling in her mind. "Thank you for that," she said, gratitude bubbling up. "Good, hope is powerful, but action is even more so," he replied, his smile warm. In that instant, something shifted between them, an unspoken bond forged in the midst of chaos. Standing in the luxurious lobby, two strangers caught in the whirlwind of their lives, they exchanged a reminder that they were in fact human. He asked, genuine interest lighting his eyes. "I want to push myself more. I want that promotion and to make my mark, but not at the cost of who I am." "You'll get there," he said confidently. "Embrace the journey and don't shy away from the missteps." Sarah smiled, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within her. "You're right." The conversation continued, weaving between insights and moments of laughter. They almost lost track of time. She shared her dreams and aspirations, and he listened with a genuine interest that felt rare in the chaotic world they navigated. As the sun began to set, transforming the room into a warm golden hue, Sarah felt lighter than she had at the start of the day. This encounter had shifted something inside her. An honest exchange amidst the hustle had reminded her of the importance of vulnerability and how powerful it could be. Eventually, they both took out their phones to exchange contact information. "Stay in touch," he said, his tone encouraging. "Absolutely," she replied, her heart swelling. He nodded, his expression a mix of warmth and reassurance. "Remember, every step counts." As they parted ways, Sarah walked back through the lobby, her heart buoyed by the unexpected connection. The world around her felt vibrant, filled with potential. The lobby, previously just a rush of stress and anxiety, transformed into a space where understanding blossomed. In the days that followed, Sarah held onto that moment. It became a guiding light during tough times, echoing in her mind whenever self-doubt threatened. She embraced each challenge with renewed vigor, understanding that stumbling blocks were part of the journey. Weeks later, during a company event featuring both executives and junior staff members, Sarah found herself seated at a table with colleagues, laughter filling the air. Suddenly, her gaze flickered to the entrance, and there he was again, Mr. Stanton, more charming than ever, chatting amicably with guests. Something urged her to approach him. This time, instead of trepidation, she felt confidence. Cutting through the crowd, she reached him. "Mr. Stanton," she greeted, He turned, surprise crossing his face. "You're doing great, Sarah. I've really taken your advice to heart," she admitted. With a proud smile, he responded, "That's wonderful to hear. Growth comes in waves, doesn't it?" It felt like a weight lifted off her shoulders, knowing he saw her efforts. "I've learned that it's not just about work accomplishments." "Exactly," he replied, nodding. With that, they delved into a conversation filled with shared experiences, laughter, and encouragement. The atmosphere shimmered with excitement around them, filled with the vibrancy of life and ambition. As the evening progressed and guests milled around, Sarah reflected on the powerful journey she had experienced, how a single lapse in judgment had turned into a lesson in humility and connection. She realized that even small moments could make ripples, changing the course of life in almost magical ways. They had found each other amidst chaos and had discovered that the world didn't have to feel so isolating. Every misstep wasn't a failure but an invitation to grow, an opportunity to learn about herself and the people around her. And she never forgot that once upon a time, in a bustling hotel lobby, she had yelled at a stranger only to find a mentor and a friend in the process. In the heart of the city, the lobby of the Grandview Hotel was alive with the sounds of laughter and conversation. The elegant chandeliers twinkled above, casting a warm glow on the marble floors. Sarah stood at the reception desk, her mind racing as she checked her watch for the third time. She was late, and the weight of that fact pressed down on her like a heavy stone. She had spent weeks preparing for this meeting, her chance to pitch a groundbreaking project to her boss and the higher-ups. The thought sent a wave of anxiety crashing over her. Time seemed to conspire against her as she paced, impatience bubbling just beneath the surface. Then, as if on cue, the entrance door swung open and in walked a tall man in a sharply tailored suit. He commanded attention with an air of confidence that made Sarah's blood boil. She had no time for distractions. He stepped right into her path, blocking her way completely. She blurted out, her voice sharper than she intended. "Can you move?" The man turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. She snapped, the irritation spilling over. His calm demeanor only fueled her frustration. He stepped aside, raising his hands slightly in submission, yet a hint of confusion lingered in his expression. Sarah didn't bother to look back as she stormed toward the elevator, her heart pounding furiously. Inside the elevator, she pressed the button repeatedly as if the force could summon it to ascend faster. The metal walls felt like they were closing in on her, and her mind raced with thoughts of what the meeting could mean for her career. This pitch was not just a job for her, it was an opportunity to prove herself, to step out of the shadows of doubt. When the elevator doors finally opened, she scrambled out, desperate to escape the anxiety brewing inside her. She breezed past her colleagues, barely managing a smile as she entered the conference room. The air inside felt thick with anticipation, the long table laden with documents and laptops. One by one, her coworkers took their turns presenting. Their confidence exuded from every word while Sarah sat there, her heart racing faster. Finally, it was her turn. She stood up, the eyes of the room piercing through her, and as she began to speak, something in her throat tightened. Just then, the image of the man she had yelled at flashed in her mind. He had been so calm, so composed. How could she have reacted that way? Panic surged within her, and her words tumbled out haphazardly. The more she spoke, the more the knot in her stomach tightened. In the middle of a sentence, her eyes drifted to the window, and there he was again, standing just outside the hotel, his presence unmistakable. He was engaged in conversation, the sunlight accentuating his features. Her heart dropped. He wasn't just a random guy, he was the owner of the Grandview Hotel. She had snapped at the man whose name was associated with the very place she was standing in. Embarrassment flooded her, pushing her professionalism right out the window. Her mind raced a million miles a minute. How would her colleagues perceive her now? Would they see her differently? Did her boss think she was out of control? All these thoughts clamored for attention, leaving her unable to focus. Finally, she stumbled through her presentation, her voice shaky and weak. She felt the heat rising in her cheeks, aware of how her earlier outburst must have felt to everyone in the room. They exchanged glances, confusion lacing their features. When the meeting finally concluded, relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. She whipped around, darting back toward the lobby. She needed to find him, to apologize, to explain. No way could she let a moment of anger define her. As she stepped into the lively lobby again, the energy around her felt different. It was no longer a busy space with indifferent people. It felt like a stage where she needed to confront her mistakes. Her heart raced as she searched the crowd. Where was he? Then she saw him, still engaged in conversation with a couple of guests, his demeanor relaxed. Just seeing him brought back the memory of her outburst, and doubt mingled with determination. She stepped forward, her breath quickening. "Mister," she called, louder than she intended. He looked up, surprise evident on his face as he turned toward her. "You," he said, recognition dawning. "Yes, me," she replied, rushing closer, her heart pounding. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't mean to yell at you. I was just—" James studied her for a moment, his expression shifting from surprise to something softer. "It's all right," he said finally, his voice calm and measured. "I shouldn't have reacted that way," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't realize who you were." His brow furrowed thoughtfully. Stress can do that to anyone. No anger colored his tone. In fact, there was an understanding there that caught her off guard. "Thank you for understanding," she said, a wave of relief washing over her. "Everyone's human," he replied. "Mistakes are part of life." With those words, the tension she felt began to fade. She discovered in that moment that perhaps he wasn't just a figure of authority with a name on the building. He was a person navigating his own challenges. "I really appreciate that perspective," she said, feeling the weight lift. "Good, it's easy to get caught up in the pressures of work," he replied, sincerity etched into his features. "But remember that each step you take leads you somewhere." Sarah nodded, emboldened by his words. "I've spent too long worrying about what others think." He smiled, a genuine warmth that seemed to radiate from him. "Then you're already ahead of the game." As they stood amidst the bustle of the lobby, Sarah felt an unexpected camaraderie with him. This chance encounter had changed the course of her day, maybe even her life. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady now. "Anytime," he replied, giving her a reassuring nod. With those final words, she walked away from him, her heart lighter than it had been all day. She felt a shift inside, a newfound confidence mingling with hope. Perhaps this was a moment she would carry with her, a reminder that life was not just about where she was headed, but how she embraced the journey. In the days that followed, Sarah held on to that encounter, letting it guide her through the storms of workplace pressures. Whenever self-doubt threatened to pull her under, she recalled Mr. Stanton and their conversation about growth stemming from mistakes. It empowered her, allowing her to navigate challenges with grace. Weeks later, during a company event marked by mingling and laughter, Sarah spotted Mr. Stanton again. He stood across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of executives. Instead of feeling a rush of anxiety as she had before, she felt ready. She moved through the crowd with purpose, her heart racing in anticipation. "Mr." She called out, the confidence in her voice surprising even herself. He turned, a grin spreading across his face. She replied, beaming, "I just wanted to say thank you for what you said last time we spoke." He nodded, genuine affirmation in his eyes. "I'm glad to hear that." "They really are," she agreed. "It's helped me grow both personally and professionally." Good. His support ignited a warmth inside her, fueling her ambition. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude, recognizing that their initial encounter had led them here, a moment of shared understanding. He grinned, his enthusiasm evident. "Keep that momentum going." As they continued their conversation, the room around them blurred into the background. They shared laughter and stories, and with each passing moment, she felt more grounded in her newfound confidence. By the end of the night, as they parted ways, Sarah felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. She had met someone who not only inspired her, but reminded her of the strength found in vulnerability. Looking back at the Grandview Hotel, once a place of anxiety and pressure, she now felt a wave of appreciation. It was here in this space, amid the bustling life of the city, where she had faced one of her biggest fears and found clarity instead of chaos. She realized that sometimes it's the moments we least expect, like yelling at a stranger, that serve as turning points, crafting stories of growth and resilience in ways we never imagined. In exposing her flaws, she had uncovered strength and forged a bond that transformed her journey. As she walked away from the hotel, heart full and mind clear, she felt ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. Each step forward felt lighter, less burdened by fear, and much more infused with purpose. The world was open to her now, and she was ready to embrace it. The lobby of the Crown Heights Hotel was bustling with activity, the kind of place where the rich and ambitious mingled in polished shoes and crisp suits. Sarah stood near the front desk, her pulse racing as time slipped through her fingers. She checked her watch again and cursed under her breath. She was running late for a meeting, an important one that could change the course of her career. Weeks of preparation and sleepless nights riding on this moment, and now she was going to blow it. Frustration bubbled up inside her, a simmering volcano ready to explode. Just then, the massive door swung open, and in walked a man, tall and imposing, who immediately caught her attention. He wore a tailored gray suit that screamed confidence, his presence commanding the room. But Sarah didn't have time for distractions, not now. As he stepped directly into her path, blocking her way like an immovable wall, her irritation flared. She snapped, her voice slicing through the ambient chatter. He turned, surprise washing over his face. She interrupted, the words spilling out sharper than she intended. He raised an eyebrow, visibly taken aback, stepping aside with an air of calmness that only fueled her irritation further. Sarah didn't wait for another moment. She dashed toward the elevator, heart pounding with anxiety. Inside the elevator, she felt the walls closing in around her like a trap. Panic clawed at her insides as she pressed the button for the top floor repeatedly, wishing she could somehow will it to move faster. What would happen if she missed her chance? The thought spiraled in her mind, a cascade of dread. When the elevator finally dinged, she bolted out, rushing to the conference room like a whirlwind. Her colleagues were already seated, chatting lightly. She barely managed to give them a nod before taking her place at the long table, the air around her thick with anticipation. One by one, her coworkers presented their ideas. Each person spoke with the confidence of someone who believed they belonged, their voices steady and assured. Sarah's heart raced as she revised her own thoughts, thinking of how the earlier encounter still haunted her. Then it was her turn. She stood up, her palms sweaty against her notes. The eyes of the room bore into her, expecting brilliance, but all she felt was fear. Words escaped her, slipping through her grasp like grains of sand. Halfway through, she glanced out the window and saw him again, the same man from the lobby, standing outside, talking to a group of attendees. The sight sent a shock through her system, but this time it wasn't just embarrassment that washed over her. It was recognition. His name flashed in her mind, James Stanton. The thought hit her like a freight train. He wasn't just some random guy, he was the owner of the Crown Heights Hotel. This was not just a man she had snapped at, this was someone important, someone she had dismissed too easily, and now she was left cringing at her own behavior. Her mind spiraled, the words she had practiced evaporating into thin air. It felt like the walls were closing in again, but this time it was the humiliation that weighed her down. The meeting was slipping away from her as panic tightened its grip. Stumbling over her points, she finished with a shaky voice and a weak smile. The room finally erupted in polite applause, but Sarah felt no pride in her performance, only embarrassment. She couldn't shake the image of James's surprised expression moving through her mind like a ghost. As the meeting ended, that anxious weight bore down on her, compelling her to take action. She couldn't let this go. She needed to apologize. No way could she let one moment of impulse define her. With determination, Sarah slipped out of the conference room and back into the lobby. She needed to find him, and her heart raced with urgency. The lobby felt like an arena, full of people who would witness her confrontation. Scanning the room, she finally spotted him near the entrance, still engaged in conversation with other guests. His ease contrasted painfully with her own turmoil. What if he didn't want to see her? What if he brushed her off? But as she took a breath, the thought of walking away felt worse. She would regret it if she didn't at least try. "Mister," she called out, her voice echoing slightly louder than she intended. He turned, surprise mingling with recognition. "Yes, it's me," she said, almost breathless as she approached him. "I wanted to apologize. I didn't mean to snap at you earlier. I've had a rough day and it's all right," he interrupted gently, his voice calm. Her instincts urged her to feel embarrassed, but he seemed to carry a warmth, an understanding that disarmed her. "But you deserve better, and I shouldn't have reacted that way. I didn't know who you were, and it was unprofessional of me," she admitted, feeling the words spill out like a confession. James regarded her for a moment, and she wondered what he was thinking. "It happens to the best of us," he said finally. A wave of relief washed over her. "Thank you for being so understanding." He smiled slightly, the edges of his mouth turning up in a friendly manner. "It takes courage to admit when we're wrong." This man, this figure who could easily dismiss her, chose empathy instead, and Sarah felt herself start to breathe again. "I appreciate that," she said softly. His gaze softened. "What matters is how we navigate through those rough waters." In that moment, their connection felt real and electric. "I hope you can forgive me, not just for today, but for the impression I created," she urged, sincerity flooding her voice. "Consider it forgotten," he replied, a hint of warmth in his tone. Sarah nodded, her heart lighter. "I will." As they exchanged a few more words, the world around them faded, the noise of the lobby's bustle falling into the background. It felt like they were in their own bubble, a moment of understanding shared between two strangers. Eventually, they parted ways, and Sarah stepped back into the flow of people, buoyed by the interaction. It had been an unexpected conversation, and the resonance of it lingered in her heart. No longer did she feel the weight of embarrassment hanging over her. Instead, she felt hope. In the days that followed, that brief encounter became a cornerstone in her mind. Whenever she faced stressful situations, she recalled the kindness and wisdom of James Stanton, reminding her that vulnerabilities could lead to strength, not weakness. Time passed, and she found herself embracing challenges that once felt overwhelming. She learned to ask for help when she needed it and to offer understanding in return. Slowly, Sarah transformed her self-doubt into tenacity, climbing higher in her career. Weeks later, at another company gathering filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, Sarah found herself amidst a circle of colleagues. She noticed James across the room, engaged in conversation but easily visible. Instead of feeling a rush of anxiety, a wave of confidence washed over her. As she moved through the crowd, her heart beat strongly in her chest, not from fear but from a sense of purpose. She approached him. "Mr. Stanton," she greeted, smiling. "I just wanted to thank you for that conversation we had." He turned to her, a knowing smile on his face. "You've grown since the last time we spoke. I've been committing to being more open," she said, feeling the words spill out. "That's fantastic to hear," he replied, his demeanor warm. Vulnerability is a strength that can build connections and foster understanding. As they exchanged stories, the energy in the room seemed to shift. Sarah felt empowered and confident, filled with purpose and insight as they discussed ideas and aspirations. She realized how far she had come since that day in the lobby. A moment of frustration had transformed into a journey of growth, and the anxiety that used to grip her felt like a distant memory. Instead, she stood strong, knowing she had the power to own her narrative. A Eventually, as the night wore on, Sarah bid James goodbye. As she walked away, she felt lighter, like a weight had lifted off her shoulders. She had not only forgiven herself for her past mistakes, but had moved forward from them, embracing the lessons they provided. The lobby that had once felt intimidating became a space where dreams took shape, connections were forged, and misunderstandings turned into opportunities for growth. As she stepped out into the bustling street, Sarah felt a newfound sense of purpose. Life was a blend of chaos and clarity, but navigating it was an adventure she was ready to embrace. Every moment, even the uncomfortable ones, carved the path forward, leading her closer to where she was meant to be. In a world that often felt overwhelming, she had discovered that connections defined her journey and that even the smallest missteps held within them the key to personal growth. And from that moment on, she faced each day armed with the courage to learn, to grow, and ultimately to thrive. In the grand lobby of the Sterling Heights Hotel, where polished marble floors reflected the sparkle of crystal chandeliers, Sarah felt an unsettling mix of anticipation and dread. The hotel buzzed with the energy of travelers and business people, laughter weaving in and out of the clatter of heels and wheels rolling over the floor. But Sarah wasn't there to socialize. She was there for something much more serious. With her heart racing, she checked her watch for the 5th time, anxiety creeping in. Today was a pivotal day, her chance to pitch a groundbreaking project to her boss and a handful of executives. She had spent weeks preparing, and everything hinged on this moment. If she didn't nail it, who knew how long she'd have to wait for another opportunity? Just then, the heavy glass door swung open, and a man strolled in, tall and confident, a tailored suit that fit perfectly against the backdrop of luxury around him. He walked with an ease that drew the gaze of every person in the lobby. But all Sarah could feel was frustration welling inside her. He stepped right into her path, blocking her way to the front desk. "Excuse me," she shot out, impatience lacing her tone. "Can you move aside?" The man turned, his expression a mixture of surprise and apology. She snapped, cutting him off, irritation flowing out like water from a burst dam. He stepped back, raising his hands slightly in a gesture of surrender. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, a faint frown crossing his face as he silently absorbed her words. Sarah didn't care. In her mind, she was in a race against time, and he was an unwelcome obstacle in her way. When she finally reached the elevator, her heart was pounding, but not just from the stress of the day. She was embarrassed by how she had reacted. As the elevator doors slid shut, the tiny space felt like a suffocating box. She pressed the button for the top floor repeatedly, frustration coursing through her veins. The meeting was too important to lose focus now. The ride felt like an eternity. Each floor sounded like a tick on the clock, counting down the moments until she had to present. When the elevator finally dinged and the doors opened, it was as if a wave of fresh air rushed in. Sarah rushed out, nearly colliding with a wall of colleagues already seated at the long conference table. Someone called out, but she barely acknowledged the friendly gesture. She plopped down at the table, trying to regain her composure. One by one, her colleagues took their turns. Each person spoke with confidence, their ideas flowing smoothly like water. But Sarah's mind was distracted, replaying the earlier encounter. She struggled to focus on the words being spoken, anxiety bubbling under her skin. Then it was her turn. Standing up felt like walking to the gallows. The weight of the room pressed against her, every eye trained on her. She cleared her throat, ready to launch into her pitch, but the words turned into a jumble in her head. The man from the lobby popped into her mind again, and the anger she had wielded so easily now felt misplaced and childish. Halfway through her presentation, she caught sight of a figure outside the glass wall, the same man just a few yards away. He stood there, relaxed and talking to some guests, the sunlight catching his features, and then it hit her. His name was etched in gold letters on the side of the building. Her heart sank. This wasn't just some random guy she had snapped at. He was the owner of the Sterling Heights Hotel. Panic surged through her as she realized who she had yelled at moments before. What were her colleagues thinking? Did they see her as unprofessional, lacking self-control? Oh, how she wished she could rewind time. The words she wanted to say evaporated before her eyes. Her hands shook as she struggled to finish her pitch, a weak conclusion that barely registered. It was as if every ounce of confidence had been drained from her. The room grew silent as her colleagues offered polite applause, but she heard nothing, only the thudding of her heartbeat pulsing in her ears. When the meeting concluded, Sarah felt that weight creep back in. She needed to find him and apologize. She wouldn't let this moment define her career. As her colleagues mingled and chatted amongst themselves, she slipped out of the conference room, her pulse quickening. The lobby felt different now, like a stage where she needed to confront her mistake. Gathering her courage, Sarah scanned the room, searching for him. Where had he gone? The knot in her stomach tightened as she felt waves of doubt and fear. Then she spotted him near the entrance, still engaged in conversation, his presence buoyant and magnetic. For a brief moment, anxiety held her, still not knowing whether to approach him felt like being paralyzed in a nightmare. What if he brushed her off? What if he refused to hear her out? But she couldn't escape her own conscience. "Mister," she called out, her voice shaking but determined. He turned to her, eyebrows raised in surprise, a familiar look of recognition flashing in his eyes. "You," he said, a knowing smile creeping onto his face. "Yes, me," she replied, stepping closer, her insides twisting with urgency. "I wanted to sincerely apologize for yelling at you earlier." James studied her for a moment. There was no anger in his gaze. Instead, there was an air of understanding. "It's all right," he said, his voice calm like a gentle wave. "You're too kind," she replied, feeling relief soften the edge of her anxiety. "It happens," he said, his tone reassuring. Sarah nodded, grateful for his grace. "Your understanding means a lot to me." James seemed to consider her words carefully. Mistakes are often our best teachers. In that gentle exchange, something shifted within her. This wasn't just a chance encounter anymore. Here was a powerful man, one with influence and success, choosing kindness over judgment. She asked, half joking and half hopeful. "Only if you remember that every setback is just part of the journey," he replied, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. There it was again, the subtle shift in atmosphere, the connection that transcended their earlier confrontation. Sarah found herself feeling at ease, almost inspired. "Thank you, Mr. Stanton. Call me James," he said, his expression softening. As they exchanged a few more words, Sarah felt a new weight lift from her shoulders, the burdens of anxiety and embarrassment slowly transforming into empowerment. It was as if the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them, their moment of understanding hanging in the air like a fragile piece. With a final smile, she stepped back, ready to return to her colleagues with newfound confidence. The encounter had changed something deep inside her, igniting a spark she didn't know she had. She couldn't help but believe that she had turned a corner, learning that mistakes could lead to connections, and sometimes those connections could change your life. Over the next few weeks, Sarah carried that encounter with her. She learned to navigate the challenges before her, embracing the missteps instead of fearing them. The office felt different as she took on new assignments with enthusiasm, actively seeking opportunities where she might have hesitated before. Instead of hiding from failure, she welcomed it, turning failures into stepping stones toward growth. One day, while preparing for another meeting, she felt a twinge of nerves, but instead of allowing that to destabilize her, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, recalling James's calm demeanor. "You've got this," she whispered to herself. At a company social gathering weeks later, the atmosphere buzzed with laughter and chatter. She spotted James across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of executives, his elegant presence commanding the area. Instead of anxiety, Sarah felt a sense of excitement. Determined, she made her way through the throngs of people, her heart racing but not from fear. She called out, approaching him. He turned and broke into a smile upon seeing her. "I'm glad to see you again." "I've been great," she replied, the confidence flowing easily from her now. "I've taken your advice to heart." "Good to hear. Growth requires courage, and you seem to have found yours," he said, genuine pride glimmering in his eyes. As they chatted more, the topics ranged from projects to personal anecdotes, intertwining their stories. They laughed about failures and triumphs alike. Sarah felt invigorated, each moment becoming clearer. As the evening wore on, she realized how much she valued these conversations. The teachings learned from a single moment of confrontation had blossomed into a sense of camaraderie, a friendship born. Eventually, they exchanged contact information, promising to keep in touch. As Sarah left the gathering, she felt a mixture of excitement and gratitude. Who knew that yelling at a stranger would lead to an invaluable connection and important life lessons? Reflecting on her journey, Sarah understood that growth stemmed not from her successes alone, but also from the moments of vulnerability, embarrassment, and connection. It had transformed her, shaping her into someone who faced challenges head-on and wasn't afraid to embrace the messy parts of life. The lobby of the hotel, which had once been a stage of intimidation, now felt like a place where strength and vulnerability intersected, where small moments could spark monumental change. Exiting the hotel that night, she stepped into the busy street, the air cool and refreshing against her skin. She felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, embracing the uncertainty with open arms. Life wasn't just about avoiding mistakes. It was about learning from them, forging connections, and growing stronger through every step of the journey. And so, with newfound purpose, Sarah walked away from the Sterling Heights Hotel, her eyes bright with determination, prepared to seize every opportunity that came her way. Each moment, each lesson learned, crafted a narrative of resilience, and she was more than ready to live it fully. In the crowded lobby of the Metropolitan Hotel, the atmosphere buzzed with a mix of excitement and urgency. The polished marble glowed under the dazzling chandeliers, and the air was thick with conversation as guests checked in and out. Amid this hustle, Sarah stood, heart pounding like a drum, waiting for her chance to make a lasting impression. Her big meeting loomed just moments away. The opportunity to pitch her project to the executive team was a chance she couldn't afford to mess up. Anxiety gripped her as she checked her watch for the third time. Every tick of the clock echoed her growing dread. Just then, the heavy glass doors swung wide, and in walked a tall, striking man, exuding confidence with every step. He wore a tailored suit that seemed to amplify his presence, drawing the eyes of everyone around. But Sarah didn't notice the way he commanded attention. Her mind was racing faster than her heart. As he stepped directly into her path, blocking her hurried advance, she felt her frustration boil over. She barked, catching him off guard. "Can you please move?" The man turned, his expression shifting from casual to shocked. She interrupted, her words slicing through the ambient chatter like a hot knife. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace, confusion clouding his features. She snapped, her voice sharp enough to draw attention from nearby guests. She didn't stay to see his reaction, her focus was only on reaching the elevator. Inside, she pressed the button for the top floor over and over, as if her anxiety could somehow will the elevator to ascend faster. The brief encounter replayed in her mind like a bad movie. How could she have reacted that way? What was wrong with her? This wasn't who she was supposed to be, especially not today. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. The metal box rattled softly as it moved upward, the weight of her nerves creeping in. When the doors finally opened, she practically spilled out, desperate to shake off the moment that had already started to haunt her. As she hurried down the sleek corridor, her heart raced. She entered the conference room where her colleagues awaited her, seated and ready to start. Sarah forced a smile as she took her place at the long table. The atmosphere was heavy with expectation. Her mind flickered back to the man in the lobby. Somewhere deep down, she felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. One by one, her coworkers presented their pitches. Each person spoke with confidence, their voices steady, weaving ideas that sparkled like jewels. But her heart raced, their success heightened her fears. Would she deliver? Would she impress? She fought against the anxiety that threatened to drown her. Finally, it was her turn. As she stood up, she could feel the weight of every eye in the room on her, expectant and judgmental. Clearing her throat, she tried to speak, but the words hung in her throat like a stubborn knot. Panic set in, transforming her thoughts into a chaotic jumble. Midway through, she caught a glimpse of someone outside the glass wall, and her heart dropped. It was him again, the man from the lobby. He stood there, chatting casually with a few other guests, completely at ease. Her stomach lurched as the realization washed over her like a cold wave. He was not just some random guy. He was the owner of the very hotel she was standing in, a man of considerable influence and power. In that moment, embarrassment flooded her, replacing any pride she had taken in preparing for her pitch. As her thoughts spiraled out of control, she stumbled through her presentation, each word feeling heavier than the last. It was as if the gravity of her earlier outburst had grounded her, pinning her to the spot. Her colleagues' expressions shifted from mild curiosity to concern. The applause that followed her conclusion felt hollow and forced. When the meeting wrapped up, Sarah slumped back in her chair, her heart sinking. She had blown it. All the meticulous planning, all the hard work, it had all unraveled because of a moment of weakness. As everyone else filed out, discussing next steps, she remained rooted to her seat, the weight of the room pressing down on her. A colleague asked, concern mingling with confusion. "I just need a moment," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. As they left, she closed her eyes, replaying the scene in the lobby. Her hands shook at the thought of having yelled at James Stanton. She could almost picture his bewildered expression. That calm, composed man didn't deserve her outburst. Panic clawed at her throat as she realized she had dismissed someone so pivotal to her industry, and now she might never have another chance to present again. Determined to fix it, Sarah rose from her chair, her heart racing anew. She stepped back into the busy lobby, scanning the crowd for him. Each second felt elongated, the vibrant atmosphere of the hotel now feeling almost menacing. Where was he? Then she spotted him, still near the entrance, but now engaged in conversation with a small group. Anxiety bubbled in her stomach, every instinct screaming for her to turn away, but she couldn't. This was her chance not just to address her mistake, but to reclaim her confidence. "Mister," she called out, praying her voice held steady. He turned at the sound, surprise flashing across his face. As their eyes met, she felt a mix of dread and resolve. She began, her heart thudding in her chest. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't mean to lose my temper." James's expression shifted, his surprise softening into understanding. "It's okay," he replied, his voice smooth and calm. She took a step closer, her heart pounding. "I didn't realize who you were, and it was unprofessional of me." His brow furrowed slightly, but his demeanor remained warm. It happens. Stress can lead to misunderstandings. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude, a warmth blossoming within her. "Thank you for being so understanding." James smiled, and a subtle shift occurred in the low tension between them. It's easy to get caught up in the pressure. Remember that everyone has their burdens. At that moment, she realized the weight of her earlier actions was lifting. "Your words make a lot of sense," she said, feeling something inside her shift. He nodded as though acknowledging her journey. "And you're clearly someone who cares deeply about their work." "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady as hope ignited within her. As they stood there, time seemed to stretch, their surroundings fading into the background. For a brief moment, they were two individuals forging a bond in a chaotic world. In his eyes, she saw a willingness to understand and forgive, a welcome contrast to her earlier fears. Finally, she took a deep breath, ready to step back into the fray. "I'll take this as a learning experience," she promised him. As she turned to leave, James called after her, his tone light but serious. His words lingered behind her, and Sarah walked away filled with a renewed sense of purpose. She found herself glancing back, catching him still watching her as if he had just imparted a vital piece of wisdom. With the weight of the day lightening, Sarah stepped back into the office, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She was ready to face the world with her head held high, dragging her fears into the open light. Today didn't have to end in defeat. But just as she was about to enter the conference room again, her phone buzzed in her pocket, an email notification. Her breath caught in her throat. The world around her felt like it had warped into slow motion as she clicked the message open, reading the words that sent a wave of panic crashing over her. The pitch she had just delivered, everything she had worked for, was being altered. The email demanded changes that felt impossible. Suddenly, the adrenaline surged back as her thoughts spiraled. Had she really just thrown that chance away? Would her earlier courage mean anything at all if she couldn't rally in this moment? Her resolve began to crumble, the weight of expectations settling heavily on her shoulders once more. She stared at her screen, the once inspiring encounter with James Stanton overshadowed by the daunting task ahead. As she gathered her thoughts, the door to the conference room swung open and she could feel the eyes of her colleagues on her again. Would they see her struggle? Would they understand the burden she was now carrying? The moment hung between hope and despair, and Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She had faced one challenge today, but now another loomed large, threatening to pull her back into the shadows. The future was uncertain and fraught with pressure, and all she could do was take a deep breath and step forward, not knowing what awaited her on the other side of that threshold.